So you sent us this massive stack of sources today, all about the future of domestic robotics. And, looking through all your notes in the articles, one really huge question just jumped out at us right away.
Yeah, it's a completely fascinating space right now.
It really is. Because, our mission today for this deep dive is to figure out what home robots are actually going to look like. And usually when we hear the word robot, our brains just immediately default to Hollywood, right?
Oh, absolutely. We expect this, like, gleaming, back-flipping metal humanoid.
Exactly, like a shiny mechanical butler just striding through the front door to hand you your drink.
Right, and it is a very specific, highly engineered aesthetic that we've essentially been conditioned to expect. We just assume the absolute pinnacle of robotics means building machines that look and move and act exactly like us.
But today we are exploring something completely different, because buried in that huge stack of research you shared is this really interesting profile on a new robot named Isaac 1.
Yeah, built by a San Francisco startup called Weave Robotics.
Right. And what we're going to explore is why the actual future of home robotics might not look like a sci-fi movie at all. In fact, it might look more like a quiet, well-behaved piece of living room furniture.
Which, is a massive departure from the industry standard, because to truly appreciate why Isaac 1 looks essentially like a rolling laundry hamper wrapped in fabric, we first have to look at what the rest of the robotics industry is doing.
Right. The broader context.
Exactly. And the context you highlighted in your sources shows that currently there is a multi-billion-dollar humanoid arms race underway.
And when you say arms race, you mean that both literally and figuratively, right?
Yeah. The industry has spent, the past 3 years and literally billions of dollars in venture capital attempting to perfectly recreate the human body.
Wow.
You've got Tesla heavily developing Optimus in their factories, right?
Right.
With the consumer home as the eventual destination. And then a company called Figure is actively deploying their humanoids in complex manufacturing environments, working directly with BMW.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it feels like everyone is obsessively laser-focused on building a mechanical human. Why is the bipedal, two-legged human shape the holy grail here?
Well, the logic makes sense on the surface. Our entire world, our stairs, our door handles, our kitchens, it was all designed by humans for humans.
Sure, that makes sense.
So the thinking goes, a general-purpose robot naturally needs to be human-shaped to navigate that world, and the financial projections driving this obsession are just absolutely staggering.
Give me some numbers. How big is this market?
So Goldman Sachs is projecting that the humanoid market could reach $38 billion by 2035. That's with 1.4 million units shipped.
Oh, wow. And
And Morgan Stanley sketched out an even wilder scenario where the broader humanoid economy passes $5 trillion by 2050.
$5 trillion. That is a number so big it almost loses its meaning.
It really does.
So you can definitely see why all these massive tech companies are chasing the bipedal dream. But there's another competitor mentioned in your sources, a company called 1X.
Yes, 1X.
And they are actually taking pre-orders right now for a robot named Neo, right? And Neo is exactly what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
It's a bipedal humanoid robot. It walks on 2 legs, has 5-fingered hands, and it's supposedly shipping to American homes this year.
Right, shipping this year.
But the price tag for Neo is $20,000.
And that $20,000 price tag, that is the inflection point here. It brings us straight to the core philosophy of Weave Robotics.
How so?
Well, Weave basically looked at that price, they looked at the crazy engineering required to achieve it, and they just decided to run in the exact opposite direction of 1X and Tesla.
Right.
They realized that building a full walking 5-fingered humanoid just to do domestic chores is an exercise in massive overkill.
It's like buying a $20,000 Swiss Army knife when all you really need is a toaster.
Yeah.
You're paying this huge premium for 98 intricate tools you are never going to use just to get your morning waffle.
That's a great analogy. And what's fascinating here is the brutal economics of robotics underneath that price tag. Let's look at the mechanics of legs, for example.
Right. Okay, let's do it.
In the robotics world, recreating human walking is incredibly expensive and computationally heavy.
But why is that? Toddlers figure out how to walk in a year. Why is it so hard for a supercomputer?
Think about the physics of walking. It is essentially controlled falling.
Controlled falling.
Yeah. When you lift one leg, you are throwing your center of mass completely off balance. To prevent a 100-pound metal machine from crashing into the floor, a bipedal robot requires a massive array of gyroscopes, force torque sensors in the ankles, and high-end computing.
Just to stand there and take a step.
Exactly, to make thousands of micro-corrections every single second. Every single joint requires a highly specialized, incredibly expensive motor called a harmonic drive just to handle the dynamic loads of walking.
So you are basically spending thousands of dollars just to fight gravity.
Exactly that. So we've bypassed the problem entirely. Isaac One moves on wheels.
Wheels, just like a cart.
Yeah, they design their own wheel modules in-house, which navigate confidently across rugs, carpets, hardwood, tile, and, all the weird transitions in between.
Right.
And by ditching legs, they instantly slashed a massive portion of their manufacturing cost and software complexity.
Which makes perfect sense for a domestic robot, honestly. I mean, the vast majority of our homes have flat floors anyway. And they didn't stop at the legs, right? They looked at the hands, too.
Oh, absolutely. They completely redesigned the hands.
Yeah, because instead of articulated, human-like fingers with all those multiple knuckles, Isaac One just uses simple grippers. Because, as one of your articles point out so perfectly, folding a T-shirt doesn't require the same dexterity as playing a piano concerto.
It's a ruthless dedication to utility over spectacle. I mean, Isaac One's entire body runs on just 21 degrees of freedom.
Okay, let's break that down for a second for you listening. Because you know how we were just looking at the video of Neo and the sources? A degree of freedom in robotics basically means an independent joint or movement point.
Right.
So the more degrees of freedom you have, the more fluid and human-like the movement is, but the cost grows exponentially.
Exactly. A humanoid like Neo has vastly more than 21 degrees of freedom to replicate the human spine, the shoulders, the wrists. But Isaac One, with its minimal joints, can still reach 80 inches vertically.
88 inches.
Yeah, that is over 6 feet high. That's easily enough to reach a top shelf in a laundry room.
Wow.
And the founders of Weave instituted this really strict engineering rule. Every single motor, every sensor, every degree of freedom had to, quote, earn its place by making the robot meaningfully better at doing valuable work.
So if it wasn't absolutely necessary...
If a joint didn't strictly improve the chore, they cut it.
You can almost imagine it like, folding laundry with 2 oven mitts on. You don't need individual finger control to crease a towel. You just need 2 flat planes pinching and moving through space.
That's a great visual.
Right. And that edits out dozens of tiny, fragile motors. And all of that subtraction, all of that ruthless editing is what allows Weave to sell Isaac One for $7,999.
Exactly.
I mean, that is less than half the price of a humanoid like Neo.
And cutting the manufacturing cost is definitely an engineering triumph. But convincing a family to let a 6-foot-tall machine roam the halls of their house while they sleep, that is a completely different challenge.
Right. And saving money is great. But I have to push back here. You're still asking me to put a 6-foot autonomous machine in the hallway outside my kids' bedrooms.
Yeah, it's a big ask.
It is. I mean, I don't care if it's 80% cheaper than a Tesla robot. Families don't just care if a machine is mathematically safe. They care if it feels safe. If it looks like a sci-fi Terminator, it's not coming into my house. So does dressing a robot up in a fabric shell actually overcome that innate creep factor?
Well, the data strongly suggests that it does, and this is where the psychology of design becomes absolutely critical.
Okay, what does the data say?
So your stack of sources includes a November 2025 survey from the consultancy Altman Solon, and they found that Americans explicitly prefer soft, cushioned robots over full-size humanoids as the form factor they want in their homes.
So people want a robot that looks like a high-end couch, not a metal skeleton.
Exactly. And that is corroborated by another survey conducted by researchers at the University of Washington. They found that people generally prefer special-purpose robots over general humanoids because they perceive them as safer, more private, and honestly just more comfortable to coexist with.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, a humanoid invites comparison to a person, which triggers the uncanny valley. But a fabric-covered cylinder, that's just an appliance.
So we've leaned into that appliance aesthetic really hard. Isaac One has these swappable fabric panels, so you can literally match it to your living room decor.
Right, like picking out an armchair.
But the detail that completely fascinated me is how it handles the physical space. Because when it's done doing the laundry, it physically shrinks.
Yes.
The spine telescopes down from 80 inches to just 3 feet tall. It lowers its center of gravity, and it tucks itself away behind an upholstered partition.
It is entirely designed to disappear. And that psychological comfort extends to its sensors as well, because Isaac One features actual physical camera shutters that slide over its lenses when it is not actively working.
Now, that is a brilliant piece of psychological design. I
Right.
mean, we've all had our phones accidentally record us or trigger a virtual assistant when we didn't want them to.
Exactly. The trust is gone.
Nobody implicitly trusts a little green on-screen privacy light anymore because you have to trust the software powering it.
Yeah.
But a piece of physical plastic sliding over the lens, that is undeniable. You can visually confirm from across the room that the robot is blind and asleep.
And here's where it gets really interesting. If you look at the background of the two founders of Weave Robotics, Con DeGrussos and Evan Wineland, they aren't just industrial roboticists, they are Apple veterans.
Oh.
Yeah, DeGrussos worked heavily on machine learning and robotics there, and Wineland was a lead AI product manager on Apple Intelligence.
Ah, okay. That perfectly explains this hyper-focus on user experience, aesthetics, and privacy.
Yes, exactly.
They are basically applying the classic Apple design ethos to a giant home appliance. You don't just engineer the hardware to perform a task. You engineer the entire experience so that technology becomes deeply integrated and completely unobtrusive in a person's daily life.
Right. The fabric panels, the mechanical shutters, the shrinking out of sight, it is all deliberately designed to reduce the cognitive friction of having a robot in your private space.
Okay, so they have successfully designed this friendly, affordable, trustworthy fabric robot that respects your privacy. But what does it actually do all day to justify its existence? Because this is where the philosophical divide in robotics goes from being a fun engineering debate to a really high-stakes business strategy.
It really does. Because while competitors like 1X and Tesla are pitching generalist robots that will eventually learn to do anything a human can do, Isaac One is launching with exactly two capabilities.
Just two.
That is it. It handles the laundry and it performs a daily tidying routine, basically picking things up off the floor and putting them away.
So what does this all mean? Because I have to push back heavily on the business model here. We just talked about that Altman-Solon survey regarding design preferences, right?
Yeah.
That same survey found that nearly 70% of Americans outright refuse to pay more than $5,000 for a home robot. That is a hard consumer ceiling. So how in the world does Weave justify charging $7,999? Or they have a subscription model of $449 a month for a machine that only does two chores.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the justification lies in what the robotics industry calls the vacuum precedent.
The vacuum precedent.
Yeah. Consumers have spent the last 2 decades proving definitively that they will gladly adopt and pay for a robot if it reliably and completely removes a tedious recurring chore from their lives.
Ah, you are talking about the Roomba effect.
Exactly. Look at the data from the International Federation of Robotics. In 2024, there were close to 20 million consumer service robots sold globally, and 97% of those were for domestic cleaning tasks, primarily floor cleaning.
Wait, but there is a massive difference between a $200 plastic disc that bumps around under my couch and an $8,000 tower folding my laundry. Does the vacuum precedent really apply at a luxury car price point?
It does, when you factor in the value of human time and the mental load of supervision. There is incredible academic research in your sources that supports why doing 2 things perfectly is vastly superior to doing 20 things just passably.
Okay, tell me about that.
So researchers at Ben Gurion University conducted a massive study where they analyzed over 10,000 Amazon reviews of domestic robots.
What did they find in all those reviews?
They found that failures in task completion destroy customer ratings faster than anything else. Far more than if the robot was awkward or slow or lacked extra features.
Really, just not finishing the job.
Right. Because if a consumer buys a generalist robot that claims to cook, clean, and fold, but it occasionally drops a plate or leaves shirts wrinkled, it creates a new mental burden. The consumer has to supervise the robot.
That makes total sense.
And if the robot doesn't actually finish the chore flawlessly, the consumer turns on the product immediately.
Right, because true automation means you never have to think about the task again. If I have to watch the robot to make sure it didn't mess up, it's actually creating more work for me.
Which is exactly the strongest argument for Weave's narrow strategy. Doing 2 highly valuable, highly tedious chores perfectly is a much better product than a generalist that requires a human babysitter. And Weave actually has field data proving this focus works in the real world.
Yeah, they've been testing this out, right?
Yes. They have been testing a prototype called Isaac Zero since February. It is essentially a stationary version of the laundry folding robot.
They have been putting this prototype in real homes and businesses in California, if I remember correctly.
They have. And the numbers they are reporting, though, we should always note they are the company's own figures, are really impressive. The test fleet has logged over 2,000 field hours, and they are successfully folding over 1,000 pounds of laundry a week.
That is wild. And there's one specific anecdote from your source material that really struck me. They interviewed a customer in the test program, a mother of 5.
Oh, yeah.
And she told the company that the Isaacos robot got her household completely caught up on laundry for the first time in an entire year.
I mean, for anyone who manages a busy household, that is a profound value proposition. Removing the invisible mental load of a never-ending chore like laundry is something people will absolutely pay a premium for.
No kidding.
When you break down that $449 a month, you are paying about $15 a day to never touch a laundry basket or pick up a toy off the living room floor again. For dual-income households, that time recapture is easily worth exceeding the $5,000 survey ceiling.
I mean, honestly, if a machine can guarantee I never have to figure out how to fold a fitted sheet again, $8,000 starts to sound like a total bargain.
Right.
But Weave is also making a promise for the future here.
Yeah.
They argue that Isaac 1 isn't just a two-trick pony forever.
No, they are framing Isaac 1 as a general-purpose embodiment. The idea is that the hardware, the 80-inch reach, the 21 degrees of freedom, the sensors, it's capable of much more than just laundry and tidying.
Right.
The future capabilities, whether that's loading a dishwasher or wiping down counters, they see that as simply a software problem to be solved later.
So the idea is it will learn new tasks via software updates over time. Just like how your smartphone gets new features overnight, you wake up one morning and suddenly your laundry bot knows how to organize your pantry.
That is the pitch. But as with any hardware sold on the promise of future software updates, the consumer is taking a massive leap of faith.
Absolutely. We have all been burned by tech companies promising features coming in a future update that somehow never arrive. But before we get too excited about crossing laundry off our lists forever, and before we hand over $8,000, we really need to address a very big, very important secret hiding behind the curtain of all these home robots.
Ah, yes. The Wizard of Oz asterisk.
The Wizard of Oz asterisk. Because Isaac 1 is heavily pitched as autonomous by default. It is supposed to use its onboard AI and cameras to navigate your messy living room. But what happens when it encounters an edge case it doesn't understand?
Right.
When the AI gets stuck, a remote human operator steps in via the internet to take over the controls and literally drive the robot.
And to be fair to Weave, this is an industry-wide practice. 1X's Neo, that $20,000 humanoid we discussed earlier. It also relies on this exact same remote operator arrangement to get unstuck.
Wait, let's really think about the mechanics of this.
Yeah.
Am I basically paying $8,000 to have a remote worker sitting in a call center somewhere, driving a giant RC car in my living room because the AI got confused by a rogue athletic sock?
Well,
Because that completely shatters the illusion of this magical self-contained AI.
it does, and this raises an important question about how this technology actually functions at scale. The physical logistics are just daunting.
I think so.
If you have a few dozen robots in an early testing phase in California, having a team of engineers on standby to take over is completely manageable. But what happens when thousands of these robots ship to homes across the entire country?
Right. How does the queue system even work? If everyone's robot gets stuck on a Friday evening during the pre-weekend tidy-up, are you put on hold? Like, your call is very important to us. Please wait 45 minutes while our operator finishes driving your neighbor's laundry hamper.
Your sources note that Weave is noticeably vague on the exact mechanics of this remote operator queue. How do they handle network latency? What happens if your home Wi-Fi drops while the remote operator is holding a delicate object?
Wow. Yeah.
They do stress that operators only see what is strictly necessary for the task, likely using heavily blurred or abstracted visual data, and only when the customer has explicitly requested the task in order to prioritize privacy. But the logistics of scaling a human-in-the-loop system to thousands of homes is still a massive question mark.
It's like paying full tuition for a professional driving instructor, but then finding out you were the one responsible for teaching the instructor how to drive in real traffic.
Yeah.
But the founder, Evan Wineland, is totally unapologetic about this reality, isn't he?
He is incredibly pragmatic about it. His philosophy is that to matter in the robotic space, you just have to ship the hardware. You cannot perfect this technology in a pristine, controlled laboratory environment.
Makes sense.
Real homes are chaotic. They generate strange lighting, weird obstacles, and edge cases that lab training videos can never organically replicate.
Right. Kids leave toys in weird places. Dogs run through the room and knock things over. Light streams through a window at a 45-degree angle and blinds a specific sensor. The chaos of a real family home is the ultimate stress test.
Exactly. So Weave is shipping the hardware now, fully acknowledging that the autonomy isn't perfect yet. They are using those real-world edge cases and the human interventions required to solve them to capture the data necessary to train the AI for the future. Every time a human operator has to rescue Isaac 1, the AI learns how to handle that specific edge case next time.
Which brings us to the core summary of everything we've explored in your sources today. The immediate future of home robotics isn't a shiny metal butler doing backflips or trying to act human. It is a quiet, fabric-covered appliance that rolls around on simple wheels.
Right.
It does the most boring, tedious tasks imaginable. It explicitly knows when to physically shut its own eyes, and it shrinks out of the way when the job is done.
It really is the triumph of practical utility and psychological design over science fiction aesthetics.
But before we wrap up, that Wizard of Oz asterisk we just discussed leaves us with a truly fascinating new wrinkle to consider for you listening. If these robots are rolling around our homes, constantly relying on remote human operators to intervene when they get stuck, what happens when something goes wrong?
Yeah. When your fabric-covered laundry bot is being piloted by a remote contractor in another time zone and they accidentally misjudge a corner and knock over your grandmother's antique lamp or, step on your dog's tail, who is ultimately liable for that?
It is a massive legal gray area.
Yeah.
You own the hardware sitting in your living room. But if a tech company's employee was driving it when the damage occurred, who owns the mistake? Are we buying a robot to do our chores, or are we paying $8,000 to turn our living rooms into a free, real-world training ground for a tech company's future AI models?
That's a great question.
I want you to think about that the next time you're folding a mountain of laundry, wishing a robot would just magically do it for you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.